Let's say a goddess came up to you tonight and offered you two life paths. The first, you could stay where you are. You would be happy, live a peaceful, happy, long life, and die old with your family. Or you could cross the sea, fight, and win glory, but you would never return. But you'd be a hero remembered forever. What would you choose? Well, Achilles chose glory. And Achilles isn't just some arbitrary figure from ancient Greece. In fact, he was the prophet of ancient Greece, the main character. He was the epicenter of the Iliad, which was like the Bible to the whole Hellenic world, right? And though he was tragically flawed, he was what young men and boys sought to emulate. In fact, Alexander the Great, who we see here, he was LARPing at being Achilles. He wanted to be like Achilles. He wanted to exceed Achilles his whole life. And this drove him to greatness. And Achilles, Alexander, in fact, the entire Greek culture dominated by great men, by aristocrats, by all this excellence, it demonstrates a worldview that is so polar opposite to today that many would see it as maybe dangerous, as maybe cringe, or very egotistical. And that is the agonistic worldview, okay? The agonistic worldview comes from the word agon, which is the struggle to achieve glory. And this was the defining attribute, the bedrock of ancient Greek culture. If we look at something like the Olympic Games, they are literally the celebration of competition, of struggle for excellence. If we even look at the artists, the merchants of the Greek world, they were competing against each other. The city-states were constantly warring amongst each other, and heroes were trying to win glory. The agon was everywhere. It was the foundation of their Heracles myths, of their Olympic gods, the politics, their art. To live was to compete for arete. And this idea was so opposite is that they didn't seek peace. They sought greatness as a people. They sought that through struggle, which touched the divine. And it's no exaggeration to say that this worldview, it produced the highest culture maybe ever in history, at least in Western civilization. The culture that produced the whole of Western philosophy, architecture, mathematics, heroism, drama, the birthplace of all that we celebrate today started with this people who celebrated the agon. But the agonistic worldview, the heroic worldview, it is totally gone. We have gone so far in the other direction. In fact, we have gone into what Nietzsche would call slave morality, which is the celebration of the opposite virtues of the ancient Greeks. And in today's video, I want to talk about why the loss of the heroic agonistic worldview is so detrimental to our culture, and also how the revival of it isn't going to be just a return to the Greek mindset, but an evolution of it, building on the backs of everything we learned. And throughout this video, of course, I'm speaking to the leaders of the future. This video is about self-actualization and synthesizing this mindset into your own life. Let's dive in to why its loss is so problematic. So today we are far less violent, right? But we are also weaker. And this is problematic, and that's because life is a battle, right? In many ways, life is a battle against our own weaknesses and fears. It's a battle against our self-destructive ways, our weaknesses, our addictions, a battle with disease, mortality, time, aging. I struggled so much with insomnia in my life, with tragic loneliness on my hero's journey. I fought through a lot of fatigue and terrible addictions, and also there's sometimes a fight against corruption, against oppression in many ways. Life is a battle, and this is a very true worldview, okay? This is a worldview some people fully embrace. The warriors of the world fully embrace this, but most people dismiss it or sugarcoat it. I think there's other true worldviews, by the way, but this one is very important to understand. But we sugarcoat it today and dismiss it, and that's because we are consumed by distractions. We are consumed by media and a zeitgeist and advertising that incessantly highlights the good parts of life, that inundates us with comfort, but helps us avoid the dark side of existence. In fact, all death the killing of animals, warfare, suffering, it's kept behind closed doors, right? We don't have to go out and kill the chicken, behead, the cow, or lose a brother in battle or a sister in childbirth. We're not watching our grandparents die on the couch. They're dying in hospice care, right? Everything dark is kept behind closed doors. And if you suffer from depression with great conflicts inside of you, you sensitive young men who are striving for greatness, going on this hero's journey, your life is going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle, especially as you shed the old identity and adopt and fight for something new and fight for what you believe in. There's going to be a great struggle. The issue is we have a worldview that ill-equips us for us and leaves us very weak on the hero's journey. Most spirituality today, it preaches peace, it preaches detachment. It's like watered down Buddhism sold to the masses. Even in the more like masculine sphere, we have a spirituality that's more about letting go, that's more about kindness and empathy, not honor, courage, and the heroism to take your hero's journey. And this is weird to me, is because if we really wanted to get deep into the philosophy of nature, the spirituality that is emergent naturally within the world, we'd understand more of the agonistic worldview. Because what happens in nature? Everything is trying to kill everything. Nature only rewards savage excellence. When the big cat is pouncing on the freaking alligator, the alligator must evade or fight back, and whoever has more excellence in that encounter wins a meal or dies a meal, right? And it's like everywhere in nature we see this element of struggle for survival, and only in man do we see the element of struggle for excellence, struggle for distinction. Now the problem is, right? Obviously, we don't want to live in a super violent culture. This is why we created civilization. But civilization itself has a deeply domesticating force on man. The more prosperous we are, the more civilized we are, the more we come to resemble domesticated Shih Tzus versus wolves, right? And this is problematic is because how we relate to pain, how we relate to suffering, how we relate to struggle will define the limits of our potential. It will define our destiny. And we are very ill-equipped to face these things by the modern world, by everything. And the reality is, for many sensitive young men out there, for the men who are taking their hero's journey and want to be leaders of the civilization, you will often lack a place. You will often lack a tribe and be wrestling with insane passions, resistances, fears that seek to destroy you. Hence, we need to bring in the agonistic, heroic mentality once again. This was the thesis of my book. This is the thesis of so many videos on my YouTube channel. But in this video, I want to make the argument that we need to bring it in at a higher octave, that we must embody the solar ideal, not just the heroic ideal. And let me explain what I mean. The agonistic worldview, the struggle to achieve glory, it's still alive in our world. It's actually being revived right now by gym culture, by self-improvement culture, by the hustle bros, by David Goggins, and by the dissident vitalist right. The issue is, I love these guys. I love that the Jocko Willings are speaking about overcoming pain and using pain to reach self-actualization. But the issue is oftentimes the agonistic worldview is presented as a complete rehashing of the ancient worldview, or it's presented in a one-dimensional way. For instance, Alex Hormozi, right, the epitome of the entrepreneur hustle bro building awesome businesses, right? He sees all struggle and pain as simply the means of creating more wealth and riches and money. It's not actually sacred to him. It's not divine. It's not about spiritual evolution and becoming a king. It's becoming a billionaire, right? And this is cool, but it's one-dimensional. It's the same with someone like David Goggins. David Goggins runs these 200-mile ultramarathons and writes a book that says, "Can't hurt me," over and over and over. And it's beautiful. It's such a fucking motivational mindset. It's so good. The issue is it's a celebration of pain itself, because we are lacking deeper meaning as a people, right? We are lacking a deeper culture, community, and an ideal that is so meaningful that that it makes all of our suffering sacred. And what we have is a whole bunch of people on the internet talking about struggle and pain to reach your goals, but your goals aren't that meaningful. Life's not sacred anymore. And we don't have a community, a culture that's really inspiring, that's moving us forward as a people. So therefore, a lot of the agonistic worldview is either selfish, it's all about self-improvement, it's all about me and my pain, which actually makes it much harder to overcome your pain. Or it's basically the celebration of pain itself. And all of these spaces, they're actually missing the other aristocratic virtues that bring grace into this pursuit, right? For instance, the aristocratic principle of leisure maxing, which was so important. It was the contrary principle in the ancient world. The aristocrats, yes, they were training for excellence in war and competition and debating and all these things, but then they spent most of their time lounging in the sun, like talking with friends, hanging out. Leisure, grace, honesty, there's other virtues that were important. Now, of course, ancient Greece has a deep shadow, my friends. It's got a deep shadow, and this is my critique of the vitalist dissident right space. They're trying to revive this lost philosophy, this lost worldview. But the issue is the Greeks were so violent, always at war with each other, constantly warring against each other. And it was so egotistical, as everyone striving for their own glory versus the glory of the tribe, right? And this is the new Geist. This is where the Geist is moving us, is a reawakening of the agonistic worldview, but reincorporating what we have learned from Christ, from slave morality, from hundreds and thousands of years of a cultural shift towards liberalism, towards more of a collective globalist mentality. And although we have shifted to such a comfort-seeking, liberal, open, inclusive, feminine virtue society, we're going to rehash and rebring in these old virtues, and this is going to be the synthesis that leaders need to embody. So let's quickly talk about the cultural shift before we talk about the solar spirituality of the future and right now. So to understand the cultural shift, we need to understand the word Geist. The word Geist comes from Hegel, and it's that history moves with a purpose. There's an evolution of consciousness, or an evolution of humanity towards higher and loftier states or versions. I believe in this. I believe that history is evolving with a purpose. And that also means that this reevaluation of values that started with Christ happened purposefully, right? So the polar shift away from the agonistic worldview, it started in Rome with the advent of Christianity. And this was the awakening of the slave morality, as Nietzsche would put it. If we look at the virtues that we celebrate today, when we think of a virtuous man, most people think of someone like Mother Mary or Gandhi or a saint, right? We rarely think of someone like Caesar or Alexander the Great. The Christianized cardinal virtues are humility, love, compassion, charity. And these are largely feminine virtues. They're more so about the good of the whole, right? And if we look at the zeitgeist today, like what's politically popular, it's about virtue signaling how inclusive you are. It's about creating more equality. It's about helping the meek, helping the disenfranchised, which is great. I'm glad we have these kinds of institutions and ideas deeply embedded into our liberal worldview. Liberalism and the rise of the middle class were beautiful things. Like, we don't have a peasant-slave aristocratic relationship anymore. It was crucial for the evolution of humanity, but it marked the destruction of the old aristocratic mindset, which valued distinction, greatness, excellence, as opposed to equality. Equality and excellence tend to be opposite value systems, right? So this is all to say that we have gone away from the agonistic worldview. Christ has come to help us think more of the other, to evolve consciousness past a very egotistical phase. But we need to bring the masculine back in. We need to bring the heroic back in, but do it in a balanced way. Essentially, what we need to do is rebirth the Greek mindset at a higher octave. This is my thesis in this video. right, is that the revival of the agonistic worldview, it's happening. It's going to happen. It's going to redefine spirituality in the cultures of the future, right? But it needs to happen in a way of becoming a sun man, not a hero. Essentially, the geist of history is spiraling upwards, in my belief. And we're going from this like capitalistic nation state, feminine slave morality world back towards a reflection of the Bronze Age. It's just happening at a higher octave. Decentralized communities, a more heroic spirituality, greater cultural bonds, and an ethnos that comes from deeper things than just blood or skin color. We're moving into a time of solar spirituality again, no longer lunar or feminine spirituality. And that is what I want to talk to you guys about here. How do we apply the agonistic mindset in a way that elevates our suffering, that makes our suffering beautiful and makes us more spiritually and creatively productive, but also helps us become the leaders, the kings and queens of the future? Let's dive in. So a few weeks ago, I was on a multi-day hike in Peru with a woman I just met. And we were climbing through rain and snow high in the Peruvian mountains at Asangate's 20,000 foot peak. And on that hike, it was awesome. We talked about love. We talked about tantra, culture, feminism. It was awesome, right? Beautiful, fiery woman. But the altitude hit me hard, right? And I couldn't sleep that night. And I also felt all of this like anxiety being with this woman I just met. I kind of liked her, like you know what I mean? Just like a lot of anxiety attachment, and I couldn't rest, right? My body was trembling with anxiety and exhaustion when the morning came. And when I woke up, she was just gone. This woman I just met, who we had a great day before, today was our big hike day. She was gone, and she was gone for 3 hours. There was no note, and I was just like constantly thinking about her. And my mind started to go a little bit insane. Like, did I say something wrong? Did she leave because of me? Where is she? Is she okay? Right? And she came back a few hours later. But then we went on this tremendous hike, like out into nature for the whole day. And I was just constantly wrestling with myself. I think when I get really tired, I tend to get more anxious. I wanted to, and it's a girl I kind of like. It's like, oh my God, what's going on here? And this was the Agón, my friends. An Agón that I often feel in my existence, right? So to be brief here, it was hard, right? We're walking through hail, ice, anxiety, insomnia, exhaustion. And I could put my head down and actually I started smiling. I'm like, thank God for this intensity right now. How can I use this as fuel for spiritual growth? And, so much of my life leading up to that, often I feel dull. I feel dissatisfied. It's like I'm actually grateful for this contrast, because contrast, the feminine, changes, challenges. It's full of heat, right? And that heat I started using and channeling it into my trek, into my meditation. And eventually the sun broke through the clouds and this picture was taken of me just standing gloriously there in front of the Ice King, Asangate. And I remember this moment so deeply because I actually felt more spiritually pure, like more spiritually powerful, more solar because of how I faced challenge and how I used heat. Now, this leads us to a very deep philosophy I want to share with you here, which is the philosophy of stealing fire from heaven. Okay, this is important on the solar path. Stealing fire from heaven means that when we find sources of heat, be it relating with women, be it sex itself, being suffering, extremes like addictions we're trying to overcome, heartbreak and grief and ambition and desire. All of these are sources of heat. And when we feel something, some kind of contrast, some kind of Shakti into the world, energy, right? How can we channel it into deeper personal, spiritual, or creative development? How can we use heat to awaken our spirit? In fact, all spiritual growth, right? All solar embodiment, it comes from using heat productively. And this is my philosophy of like the solar path or solar spirituality. So to understand this and how the Agón fits into the broader mission here, we need to understand the ideal. The ideal of the spiritual life, of our personal development here, is to become sun kings, to become sun men, or become more sun-like. What is the sun? The sun is solar, it is radiant, it's beautiful, powerful, generative. When we're in our sun state, life flows naturally from an intuitive place of power. The sun is wholeness, right? But the sun isn't always in the sky. Sometimes it sets into the underworld and it enters the Agón, right? And the Agón is where, as sun men, we must start stealing fire from the underworld. What is the underworld? It's full of heat, right? It's full of suffering. And it's interesting that every atom of your body holds the energy of a sun, right? If there was fusion or fission inside of your body, there's tremendous energy within every cell. And solar spirituality is about learning to release it and guide it upwards. And the Greeks knew it. This is why their heroes lived it. They sought the divine through tension, through contrast, through struggle. Think about how different that is from our spirituality and worldview today. They thought agony reveals the power of the soul, of the divine. They thought through the struggle, one could be deified, right? So Achilles didn't seek peace, he sought ultimate glory. Prometheus didn't obey, he stole fire from heaven. And Christ didn't escape suffering, he transfigured it. The whole essence of the solar path is transmuting, right, the heat into light, to turn your personal battles, heartbreak, exhaustion, temptations, desires, ambitions, the affirmation of the world of suffering, to turn it into fuel for your evolution. And this is where we get into a very important distinction, right? You see, I think beyond Goggins that the Agón is necessary for the underworld, but the Agón should never be the purpose of life itself. I think some resistance is meant to be overcome, but other resistances, like things not feeling life, things that drain our energy, things that like just wreck our body, those kinds of resistances are meant to help us realign with a more whole way of living, right? So there's the agonistic philosophy, which is very important, but it needs to be balanced by a solar philosophy, by the soul. This is more of like the feminine slave morality system, right? This is prioritizing peace, right? Humility, love. These things are so important, my friends. So after that hike with that girl, right? There was another day I went hiking, and I was hiking alone. And out there, I just started surrendering. I started praying, right? I was enjoying myself in the high alpine of Peru. And in letting go of the world and fasting for a whole day, I found a peace with God. And a line came to me, is I am made in the image of God, and God is unshakable peace. And all experiences in my life, they come to help me reclaim that peace. God is peace. And I think having a philosophy and a worldview that's not just about struggle, but also about peace and love is the quest for leaders of the future. We must become men with tremendous ambition, but also open hearts. And I think leading with peace, leading with the yin, is a very good first principle. This comes from the Taoist teaching that those who are more surrendered, they live with yin first. Their yang has a deep pool of energy to draw on. So this is the dual teaching that I think is essential for the solar path, the solar spirituality, and it's actually essential for the revival of culture that is coming. So to return to our notes about culture here, is that every revival of high culture, such as the Renaissance, models itself on ancient Greece for a reason. Heroism and egotism are actually good things. When men and women are striving for distinction, striving for greatness, of course, it's going to create greatness within culture, a culture that respects distinction, right? But in that, the Greeks had their shadow, rampant slavery, again, the dark side of egotism, political instability, constant warfare. We talked about this. So we're not trying to return fully to ancient Greece, but bring in their mindset to a higher degree, right? And this is done through a great rebalancing of the masculine and feminine. I know I'm hitting many points in this video. going off on many different tangents. But if you love this content about culture and self-actualization, please subscribe. And then also, if you're a man out there who is spiritual, ambitious, and philosophically oriented, I'm building a brotherhood, a men's community for you. We have amazing conversations almost every day in there. And in fact, I'm traveling the world with 4 people from the Men's Academy. We're building the Retribalize app and business. We're on a mission to bring back the Academy ideals, to bring back real community and tribe into the world. And it's why I speak to the leaders on this channel. I'm here to inspire you and also help connect you to your brothers so we can build something freaking awesome. So my argument in terms of culture and rebalancing is that in the geist of history, we're at this moment of the reunion of Christ with Caesar, of the feminine with the masculine, right? And this all comes down to the real ideal of a king and a queen united. If we look at the culture war today, we have the right-wing manosphere red pill space, which is men going their own way, which is a lot of talking down to women and also wanting women to be trad wives, wanting them to return to the roles of Rome or Greece where they're more submissive, where they're more feminine. And I think there's good parts to this whole movement and a lot of truth in it, but there's also a shadow side, is that it's trying to return instead of evolve. There needs to be a balance between tradition and innovation. There needs to be a deep listening to the geist of history, right? So this is the same thing with the Agón. So to understand where history is moving and how to be a leader of it, we need to understand the king and queen, right? So the fulfillment of the Agón, right, is the fulfillment of the hero. And when the hero takes his hero's journey and succeeds, he should aim at becoming a king. This is where Alexander the Great went wrong. Alexander the Great was focused on eternal conquest. He wanted more and more challenges, more and more glory, which is cool for a time, but he never came into kingship of administrating the empire he built. He was constantly in his hero arc, never his king arc. And the point of the Agón, right, is to make you into a man who is sovereign inside of himself, that has a strong spine, that has been through the crucible, and now he's ready to lead and establish union, right? And union is where a king and a queen amplify each other and lead together. This is what's happening individually and culturally, right? So the king is someone who carries vision, order, and destiny, right? He's uniting people around an ideal. He's inspiring. The queen is someone who carries intuition, heart, and connection. The queen is more of the amplifying force to the king, right? For instance, I know where I want to go. I want to build a great academy in a new town. I'm very clear that that's where I want to go. There's no way a woman will ever come into my life and I'm going to adopt her vision. It's never going to happen, right? And I'm going to have a great time going that direction. But I want a queen who comes in and helps me evolve that vision, amplifies it, helps me glue community together, is elegant and dignified and deeply seeing and understanding of people and of the dream, and is someone who is like harmonizing the inside of everything, right? So a queen, an oracle, an intuitive, counterpart to you carries the equal and opposite of your energy and archetype. If you're a great warrior, she's a great healer, right? If you're a great bard, she's maybe a great artist or scribe or writer, right? And this is the arc of our spiritual evolution. In the patriarchal age of the Bronze Age, the queen was silenced. Like, women were oppressed. This is not just feminist propaganda. Like, women were silenced and not seen for millennia, right? And now we're at this point where the feminine has revolted, right? The feminine is trying to be a man. The women of today don't believe in traditional roles at all. And they're trying to be boss babes. They're trying to make it in the world. It's very exhausting for most women out there. What they really want is sacred union. And then also in the spiritual community, it's become a freaking matriarchy. Most of the spirituality of today is feminine virtues and women in lead. And hence, not a lot of things get done. Not a lot of structure is built. And also, they have this ideology where if I just become like Like this ideology of the heroine woman who does it all herself. It is bullshit. It's not actually where we're moving. Where we're moving is men must learn to live and lead from their solar center, right? And in that, this is why I'm making this video, is for the men, is we need to develop ambition and the agonistic heroic worldview. And men who have this tend to become entrepreneurs. They tend to become very successful in the world. They're very successful in their spiritual practice. But that is only the alpha man. What we must become is solar men. And solar men are people who have ambition but are united with the soul, united with their heart. And those, the alpha men, the right-wing alpha men, what they want is a submissive queen. But the problem is that's not going to build a real kingdom. That might build a business or a good life. What we actually need is solar men who attract a real queen, someone who's here to help amplify, be the oracle for your vision, and facilitate community, and create balance between slave morality and master morality inside of yourself and in your relationship so that you can serve the tribe. And this is what marriage is about, right? This is what true marriage is about. It's no longer about me. It's no longer a selfish pursuit of women and glory. Marriage is the end of the Agón for men, right? It's the beginning of the orientation outward. Marriage is about serving the tribe, the community, the culture. And we're far too selfish today, my friends. So much of personal development, self-improvement is about you. All the Agón shit is about you. It's because they don't have a bigger ideal, a bigger dream, and a bigger community to serve. The moment you are married to a woman and to your tribe, all of a sudden it's no longer about you. You become a man. And this is the force that actually builds civilization. It's not isolated men or independent women, but kings and queens who embody the old masculine virtue, the feminine virtue, right? And a heroic mindset. And when women do this and men do this, this will create the Übermensch of Nietzsche, I think. It will create the new societies of the future. And this is all done through men who carry the will of Caesar and the heart of Christ. And seek to become such a man yourself, my friends. We are starved of true leaders today. Men who can lead with vision and ambition of the hustle tech bro, but also with the community center and deep spiritual values of Christ. So you can click this video for my breakdown on Nietzsche's Übermensch of the soul of Christ and the will of Caesar. Super important video, a slower start than this one, but I think it's very essential for the leaders of tomorrow. And if you want to come join me and join our brotherhood, there's a link below to the Men's Academy to talk to me one-on-one. Let's become heart-centered conquerors. Peace.